This first lesson is your introduction to quadratics in Vertex form. So first, what is a parabola? Well, a parabola is a U-shaped graph. And there's the bell. And then we're going to go into vertex form. You learned about this yesterday in your discovery lesson. So y equals a x minus h quantity squared plus k. Okay, that's going to be our vertex form. So our axis of symmetry is where the graph folds. Then, when our a value is equal to 1, 2, and 3, well, we'll come back to that one. Okay, so when we're looking at vertex form, if a is greater than 0, then it's going to open up. When it's less than 0, it's going to open down. And hopefully you noticed that yesterday. So what I mean by that is when you had y equals x squared, that was a U-shaped graph that opens up, and when you had y equals negative x squared, it opened down. Well, that's because of this negative sign. HK is going to be your vertex. So if you had the equation y equals negative x minus 3 squared plus 4, your vertex would be 3, 4. Not negative 3, because it's not the opposite, because the original equation has a negative sign in it, so it would be opposite if it was the negative. Now, when I have x equals h, that is my axis of symmetry. That's where it's going to fold directly in half, is that h value. So if I have x minus h, it's going to move to the right. And when I have x plus h, it's going to move to the left. This is super important to remember because it's opposite of what you think. So you think that when it says a negative sign, it should move left. Well, when it's inside, you're always going to do the opposite of what you think. Okay, so let's look at these ones on the right and what they mean. Well, first, this is going to open up because there's a positive number right here. The positive 1 is understood. My vertex for this is hk. So remember, it's x minus h, so when it's a minus sign, it's actually just the number. And then this is plus k, so it's a 3 that's out there. So what this did was it moved, because it's a negative sign, it's going to move right 2, and then up 3. Okay, so the one next to that. So this one also is going to open up. My vertex is, because it's x minus h, well, these signs aren't the same, so that means it's the opposite. And then it's plus k, well, these signs aren't the same, so it's negative 3. Okay, so when the signs don't match, they're the opposite. So what happened to this one? Well, it's a plus sign inside, so it went right 2, and then it went down 3. The next one. Okay, this negative 2 that's out in front, it means it's going to open down. The 2 will make it a little bit different. We'll get back to that one also. It's going to open down. Then it's a vertex. Remember, it's x minus h, so those signs match, so it's a positive 1. Plus k, that also matches, so it's a 24. Okay, so what happened to this graph? Well, it's a negative sign, so it moved right 1. And it moved up 24. Okay, the last one over here, which has a decimal in it, the negative 2 and the 0.5 are going to make it wider or more narrow. But first, let's go with it opening down because of the negative sign right there. Then my vertex, because it should be x minus h, well, those signs are different, so it's really a negative 1, and that sign is plus k, which is the same, so the vertex is 2. So what did this graph do? Well, it's positive inside, so that's going to take it to the left 1 and up 2. All right, so let's look at the graphs of this. So our original equation is y equals ax minus h squared plus k. All right, so my a value out in front, there isn't one. There also isn't anything in parentheses. Well, since there's no parentheses, that means that 0 is my first value, and this really matches my k value, so it's negative 2. Okay, so it's kind of hard to see these lines on here. The origin is right there. So over 0 and down 2 is over 0, down 2, right there. So my axis of symmetry is my h value. So my axis of symmetry is x equals 0, because this is h comma k. So points that we have. Well, when you're finding points, you're going to put in like an xy table and put it into the equation. So let's say that I put in 1 for x. Well, then I'm getting 1 squared minus 2. Well, 1 squared minus 2 is 1 minus 2, which is negative 1. So that's the ordered pair, 1, negative 1. So over 1, down 1. Reflected point. So what I mean by reflected point is my axis of symmetry goes through like this. That means I could fold it directly in half. So I'm 1 spot away from the axis of symmetry on this side, so I'm going to go 1 this way. So my reflected point is negative 1, negative 1. Okay? And that's what my parabola is going to look like. So what happened to this from the parent graph? Well, that negative 2 was my k value, so it moved down 2 units. And that was my movement. My next one, same thing here. So my equation is y equals a x minus h squared plus k. Okay, so there's no k outside. So my k value is a 0 for my y value. The one that's inside doesn't match. It should be negative, and it's not. So this means it's going to be negative because these signs are different from each other. So let me redraw my origin again. So back 1 and up 0 is right here. So my axis of symmetry is at x equals negative 1. And what I mean by that is this is a dotted line that goes up like that, and that's our axis of symmetry. So we're going to plug in a point. Okay, when I'm picking points, I want to go 1 to the right of it. So 1 to the right of this is 0. So when I put 0 into the equation, I get 0 plus 1 quantity squared. Well, that gives me 1 squared, which is 1. So that's the ordered pair over 0 up 1. Well, then I want the reflected point. I'm 1 away, so I'm going to go 1 this way. And that's the point negative 2, 1. And there's my parabola. So the translation of this, what happened to move it from 0, 0, it went to the left 2 units, which we knew because, or it went to the left 1 unit, not 2 units, because it was plus 1. That came from our equation up there. So plus 1 took us to the left. All right, so let's do a couple more of these. So first off, in this one, my vertex is going to be important. My vertex is negative 2, 1, because remember it should be x minus h squared plus k. So these are opposite, and this one's the same. So it's opposite, making it a negative 2, and then the plus 1. So back 2 and up 1. My axis of symmetry is going to be at x equals negative 2. So all that does is it puts a dotted line up here saying that I can fold the graph in half. Okay, so now what I want to do is find another ordered pair to this. Well, to find another ordered pair, the next point to the right is x equals negative 1. So I'm going to make my xy table, put negative 1 in there. So I have 2 times negative 1 plus 2 squared plus 1. Okay, so keep solving this. I have 2 inside of here gives me a positive 1 squared plus 1. So 2 plus 1 is 3. So my next ordered pair is negative 1, 3. So back 1 and up 3. So then my reflected point is going to be, this is 1 away, so I'm going to go 1 away on this side, and that's the point negative 3, 3. This one's a little bit steeper than our other graphs, and that's going to be because of that 2 that's sitting outside. Okay, I'm going to stop and go to a different one, so just pause for just a second.